Here's Van Connor, the man with the movie plan for us for the weekend. 3 Freeview film recommendations from our Van. 2 of them are absolute belters, I think, this weekend. The other one's fine, but I know Van will chalk it up and tell you why you should watch it. I've got 3 as well, and we meet in the middle, so 6 movies now, FYC, for your consideration. Good morning, Van. How's your week been, mate? Have you seen any big new films this week?
Well, I got to see Magic Mike's Last Dance this week. That was a proper banger.
Is it a good film? I've not seen either of the other 2, and I've always thought maybe it's going to be one of those kind of, but like going to see, what was it, those dreadful Grey films, the Shades of Grey movies. No, nothing like those?
No, these actually do get better as they go on. They're basically, they're marketed as cheap, trashy exploitation male stripper movies, but they're actually like really hearty, grounded, nuanced, like, indie dramas. They're Soderbergh movies. I mean, what you're getting with a Steven Soderbergh movie. He doesn't let you down with male strippers. If anything, they're not gritty enough.
I suppose I'll be checking that one out then in the forthcoming weeks. But now let's start with your first recommendation, a big screen version of a small screen smash from the 1960s. It's on TCM, and it's the latest version of Man from U.N.C.L.E. Tell us more, Van.
Well, this is the thing, because you may remember the series better than I do. I have very little experience with the original 1964, I think it is, TV show, Man from U.N.C.L.E., adapted for the screen in 2015 by none other than Guy Ritchie. And this was Guy Ritchie trying to prove that he could do something different. So he basically did a schlocky Hollywood action movie. He'd already done that in a way with the Sherlock Holmes duology in the early 2010s, but this paired Henry Cavill, who at that point was, Superman, and Armie Hammer, who at that point was still acting and able to work, as I think it's Napoleon Solo, who is the American agent, he's the art thief turned CIA agent, and Ilya Kuryakin, I think, who's the Soviet, KGB.
I think it was Robert Vaughn for the Magnificent Seven was Napoleon Solo in the TV series, and David McCallum, the British actor who went on to be in Sapphire Steel, was in The Great Escape, actually, played Ilya Kuryakin, and they were huge pin-ups. They rivaled the Beatles for their fan club membership. They were huge stars. I remember seeing older boys at my school, collecting the bubblegum cards of Man from U.N.C.L.E. So I think it's still shown on some of either the Horror Channel or Sci-Fi or something. It's still run them occasionally, I think, still.
Oh, yeah, you still find them. They're classics of reruns. I say, adapted for the big screen, was given some of that Guy Ritchie action movie flair, which we're now a bit more used to than we were then. And they are it's basically a buddy cop movie with the 2 mismatched spies from opposing Cold War nations forced to team up and go after a rich socialite, played by, I think it's Elizabeth Debicki. This is her first major role, Elizabeth Debicki, who's the socialite who's trying to get her hands on nuclear weapons and all the spy secrets. And best of all, you got Hugh Grant in there as a sort of combination between M and Q, I think, but he's a good laugh either way, and none other than a scene stealing Alicia Vikander as the money penny of the piece. I've got a clip for you. You can see this on TCM tonight at I think it's 9 p.m. 9 p.m. on TCM. This is a clip of the 2 mismatched agents basically comparing notes as they try to break into a massive, comically oversized vault.
It's great fun, this one. Park your brain at the door. It's Man from U.N.C.L.E. It's on TCM. Here's the clip, in fact, of them preparing to pull off what would be an amazing heist if they can make it work.
People who designed this model are not very good at stealing things. I, however, am.
Did you deactivate the alarm?
Model 7010 doesn't have an alarm.
Loving your work, cowboy.
Great stuff. In fact, we're playing the bit of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. theme later on in the programme, the original one, because we thought we played some earlier because it was Jerry Goldsmith's birthday today, had he been spared. He wrote that and loads of other things, the composers, even Star Trek, I think he did as well. And I think when they got the series commissioned and they made the first episode, somebody said to them, what does U.N.C.L.E. stand for? And the producer said, what's a code word? They said, no, it's got to stand for them. And they managed to work it out as the United Nations Command for Law Enforcement. In fact, they came up with U.N.C.L.E. just to make it sound like a kind of vaguely Avengers-type spy thing. Well, my first recommendation is rather different, though. A great film, this, and it stood the test of time. When I saw it the first time, couldn't quite believe it. Saw it the second time and thought, this is a cracker, but will it last? Well, it has for me. It's called Memento from the year 2000. It's kind of Christopher Nolan's calling card, effectively. Stars Guy Pearce, Carrie-Anne Moss, freshman Matrix triumphs in it, and Joe Pantoliano, who played that hideous character in The Sopranos.
Joey Pants.
That's right. And the setup's very simple, but very, very chilling. Each and every morning, Guy Pearce wakes up with no real notion of who he is, where he is, or what's going on. But there's a tattoo done in mirror reverse on his chest, which says basically, find man who raped and killed your wife. And that's his task every day. And he leaves because he's got no short-term memory. and he leaves clues as to what's happened to him and to whether or not, don't trust her, you can trust him around the place. But of course, they're sometimes ambiguous, and the film is worked out in a very fragmented way. Now, if you get the DVD, there was an Easter egg you could go into, and you could watch it in chronological order, and frankly, it was quite dull. It was all right, but quite dull. When you see the film, you get drawn into Guy Pearce's character's astonishing world of... I think he has a memory span of about 15 minutes, so just slightly more than a goldfish. Very good thriller. This very unusual film. Could have been actually almost a kind of high concept film. I think a film noir from the 40s or 50s. It's also very modern as well. And Christopher Nolan has made some great films since then. Some that I thought were maybe... I wasn't a huge fan, for example, of Insomnia, but this I think is an absolute masterpiece. And you can catch it on BBC Two tonight, 11:05. If you've never seen it, folks, make sure you at least record it, get a watch of it, because it's a cracking movie. And if you've seen it, well, might as well catch it again, because you might work out this time what's going on. I mean, some of the bits in it are appalling. There's one scene in particular when you see it the first time, you realise, this woman served him a drink, and everyone's suddenly laughing. And then later in the film, when you see it from somebody else's perspective, you realise why they're laughing. And it's a truly hideous kind of part of indictment of human nature, this film. But what a movie this is, though, Van.
It really is. And, it's very much the case that Nolan's sort of, grounded worship of cinema as a medium and art form kind of begins here. I don't think it so much takes place, because he only had one film really before this, which was effectively a student piece, which was following. But this is him coming out of the gates with guns all blazing. And like you say, it's a testament to, when you watch it in the actual chronological order, it's nowhere near as good. It's a testament to how well his craftsmanship and the way he structures a film can aid it. You can have the exact same performances in exactly the same way, just not work in the same manner if you take them out of context. And you need that Nolan ingredient. This is pedigree filmmaking at its absolute finest. For me, I don't think Nolan was this good again until The Prestige, which I think was 6 to 8 years later. I love a good Nolan thriller. I hope that Oppenheimer is a return to that this summer when it comes out. But I really want to see Nolan do a sort of mid-budget, cheapish thriller again.
Absolutely. It's a cracker. It's BBC Two tonight, 11:05. Memento. Here's a burst of the trailer.
I guess I've already told you about my condition.
Funny every time I see you.
You don't remember where you've been or what you've just done.
I can't make new memories. Everything just fades.
What's the last thing you do remember?
My wife.
That's sweet.
Dying.
You really want to get this guy, don't you?
My wife deserves vengeance.
When you find this guy, what are you going to do?
Kill him.
Somebody's got to pay, Lenny. Somebody always pays.
Great characters and that great performances. It's Memento on tonight, 11:05. And you've gone for another very good film, inspired by a Western musical, but also a rather different film as your first selection. Tell us about Kinky Boots on tomorrow.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't think it, but Kinky Boots, the movie that spawned, one of the hit Western musicals, as you say, of our current times, bizarrely is in its original form more a story of great management. It's a story about management skills, so much so that this is adapted originally from a BBC Two documentary on management from the late 90s called, I think it was Trouble at the Top, and is now actually taught in management courses as how to adapt to changing marketplaces. Yeah, exactly. It's the story of a struggling Northampton shoe company who adapted with, a drop in the business by basically changing their business model to cater to drag queens. In the case of the movie, the story is fictionalized through Joel Edgerton, is the young guy Charlie Price who inherits the factory from his recently deceased father. Times are hard. He happens upon a drag club in Soho one night, and the drag queen maestro that is Lola, played by a then relatively unknown Chiwetel Ejiofor, who persuades him to make the sexiest of sexy red boots. But of course, Charlie's, a traditional old-school Northampton shoemaker, so making sexy red boots is not something he's used to. It's not something that falls within his comfort zone. See if you can spot the very thinly guised subtext to what we're talking about here. And Lola very quickly comes to visit the factory and sets her sights upon basically turning it around and making it into the thriving business that she knows it can be. You can see this tomorrow night, 9 p.m. on 5 Star. It is a great one if you want to just load up on pizza and Pinot, as I'll say in this case, and just strap on in for just a glitzy, glamorous, absolutely rollicking time, full of laughs, bags of heart. And I'll give you a clip of Lola reacting to the first prototype of these boots, which may in fact not be as red as she had hoped.
Here we go then, Kinky Boots. It's on tomorrow. It's great fun. Here we go.
What do you think?
Burgundy. Please, God, tell me I have not inspired something burgundy.
Red! Red! Charlie boy! Rule 1! Red!
It's the color of sex!
Burgundy is the color of hot water bottles. Red is the color of sex and fear and danger and signs that say do not enter.
All of my favorite things in life.
See, as a West Ham fan, I wouldn't mind a pair of burgundy boots. I haven't got the legs for them, but, you know, claret colour. But I suppose if you're a drag queen and you order red, you want red. And red you will get at the end of the film. Now, I've gone for a film that was a huge calling card to Hollywood. For a man who already made a mark as a great writer. He won, I think, the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay for Midnight Express. He then had a big hand, I think he watched on Conan the Barbarian as well, what with Brian De Palma on Scarface. He then took a chance at directing, and his first two films, I think, were Salvador, which is a great film with James Woods, and Platoon from 1986. Bit of a game changer in the way that the Vietnam War was regarded. Some amazing performances by Tom Berenger, who I think everyone thought was going to be an absolutely immense star. Didn't quite work out that way. He made a couple of other interesting films after it, but he's great in this as the basically psychotic sergeant. William Dafoe is in it as the at times almost caricature saintly sergeant. It's very of its time, i.e. the 80s and the 60s. It reflects, I think, more accurately the Vietnam experience of the ordinary soldier, because Oliver Stone himself was famously, he volunteered to go to Vietnam as a rather well-off youngish student. His dad had been a Wall Street broker, and of course what he saw there marked him, scarred him forever. Great cast as well, including the mighty Charlie Sheen, a very young, blink and you'll miss him, Johnny Depp's in this as well. Great location filming, very violent at times a little bit too almost heavy-handed in some of its symbolism, I think, but the soundtrack alone is worth watching this one for. I mean, the best Vietnam film for me is like one of the great films of all time is Apocalypse Now. This isn't up to that score. It's not as good as The Deer Hunter either, I think, which, you know, and again, another great movie, but it's still a darn fine film. I've not seen this for years, so I'll be watching it tomorrow night, ITV4, 11 o'clock. It's called Platoon, of course, and you might want to almost record it and then whiz through the ad breaks, because it's a film that's probably best watched in continuity rather than breaking down. The night attack scene in particular is absolutely terrifying and brilliantly shot. And of course, since then, Stone's had a ups and downs career. I mean, he's made some fascinating films, made some films that maybe weren't quite as strong, or maybe the studio messed with them. But this, I think, is one of his masterpieces. 11 o'clock, ITV4 tomorrow night. Again, it's one of those films, I think ITV4 might run it with a proviso about some of the language in it, with a reference to the, you know, the people of Vietnam. But of course, those terms are put in the mouths of characters who are fairly loathsome themselves anyway. So, kind of no holds barred. And I think enjoy is probably the wrong word for this film, isn't it? It's a good, solid movie, I think, this one, Ben.
I think this is one you survive rather than enjoy, definitely.
Okay, it's Platoon. It's on tomorrow night, ITV4, 11 o'clock. Here's a burst of the trailer.
Maybe I finally found it, way down here in the mud. Maybe from down here I can start up again. Be something I can be proud of.
He's a human being, man!
The stars. There's no right or wrong in them. They're just there.
I don't know, brothers, but I'm hurting real bad inside.
Death? Well, you all know about death. Everybody gotta die sometime.
All you got to do is make it out of here.
Epic in scale, doesn't quite always deliver on the kind of the grandiose plans it's got for itself, but still, you know, as war films go, it's well worth a watch. And my final recommendation is great performances by Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon. Great stories to tell. It is, of course, Walk the Line, which is the story, not of a trapeze artist, but of Johnny Cash, of course, and it's from the year 2011. Great soundtrack. It's basically centred around the prison concerts that Johnny Cash gave in the mid-ish to late 60s. He started much earlier than people think. I think he did the first ones in the late 50s, and he'd been, why didn't he ever do jail time? He'd spent overnight times in jail cells when he was popping too many pills and going to too many parties and drinking too much booze, and he kind of cleaned up his act, found the Lord, became a king of country, because he married effectively a member of the, you know, the royal family of American country music, the Carter family, June Carter. They're both great in this, obviously having the time of their lives in this. And Joaquin Phoenix, it's not the Joaquin Phoenix you normally may think of. He's intense in this, but he's also great fun, he's charming, and boy, does he look great in black. I mean, when you see this, sometimes, I've seen Johnny Cash sometimes, you know, in concerts, and I think, that's not Johnny. No, because Joaquin Phoenix, in my mind, is so associated with Johnny Cash now. But it's a great performance, this one. I did say to you when we were talking off-air about this that it's a shame it can't be followed by the great film Walk Hard, the spoof of this and the film Ray, which is a great movie. Is it Michael C. Hall? Is it the guy who's stepbrother's in it? Michael C. Riley, I think, is in it, isn't he? As a star of it. Oh, John C. Riley. We'll get the name right in the end.
John C. Riley.
If you get the chance to see that, folks, that is a very good spoof of this. But this is also a very moving film, very haunting film. You know, picks up some Oscar action as well. It's on 6:20 Sunday evening on Great Movies, and it is a great film, this one. I've got a burst of the trailer, a bit of country music for you now. Get those tootsies tapping to a bit of this.
He was hit by a truck, and he was lying out in that gutter dying. and you had time to sing one song. One song that would let God know what you felt about your time here on earth. One song that would sum you up. That's the kind of song that truly saves people.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
I got to ask you how you came up with that sound. Steady like a train, sharp like a razor.
We'd play faster if we could.
The taste of love is sweet.
We're all going to hell for the songs we sang.
And what about me, Charlie? Am I going to hell?
No, Gene, you're beautiful.
Bound by wild desire, I fell into a ring.
Sorry, it just happened.
You should try taking credit for something every once in a while.
Come on, baby.
Baby, 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 baby.
And I'm being honest now, I'm amused and appalled in equal measure that the Johnny Cash executives saw fit to license that wonderful song for use in a advert for hemorrhoid cream. It works on some levels. On other levels, it's almost blasphemy, is it not, for that country classic? However, let's end with your final recommendations. Another belter you found for us this time around, Van. Tell us more.
Well, I mean, there's one thing you've got to know about me. One of my fundamental tenets as a human being is I'm a big fan of a 90s Jerry Bruckheimer joint. So give me a Tony Scott-directed submarine thriller from 1996 starring Denzel and Gene Hackman as a first officer and a commander staging mutinies against one another because they can't agree on whether or not to launch a nuke against Russia. And I am absolutely in the bag. Incidentally, we started off with the movie, you know, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., in which we literally had, you know, two Cold War agents, once from the red side. We then went to Kinky Boots about red boots. So Crimson Tide seems like a logical place on which to end. I absolutely love this movie. Very claustrophobic, very tense. It's got an there's an uncredited screenplay polish on this from Quentin Tarantino. And you can very blatantly tell the moments in the film in which he has had a hand.
Is that the Lipizzaner horses speech? Did you write that one?
Yeah, there's the Lipizzaner Stallions. There's a whole section where they're arguing about the Silver Surfer and Galactus from Marvel Comics. There's loads of little bits. And there's a murderous row of all-star talent in the supporting rosters here. There's like James Gandolfini, Viggo Mortensen, Ryan Felipe, George Zunda. It's a hell of a casting. I'm probably leaving off like 15 more obvious names as well, because it's one of those movies where everyone's just got like one line here and there. It is an absolute corker, this thing. It's tense. It's thrilling. It's claustrophobic. You'll leave fingerprint indentations firmly in your armrests after watching this.
It's that unusual thing, I think, a more recent film. I think I'm right. So I'm not saying it's a Tony Scott film, so it's got to be watched and must be seen. But I think it's one of those films rare for a film of our era. I don't think it's got a single female cast member in it, has it?
No. Denzel's wife turns up early on, so does Vicky Moore. They have wives for 30 seconds at the beginning of before they get on there. And I think Gene Hackman's dog is female, so that's technically a cheat, if we're being honest.
So where can we catch this masterpiece then, Ben?
So this is Sunday night, Paramount, 9 p.m. It's the perfect time for this as well, because you can get into bed, crack this movie, put the kids to bed before 9 p.m., get under the duvet, crack this on, and doze off after this. This'll keep you, like, perched up, duvet under your chin kind of thing. Have a great time with this one. It's like I say, it is one of the great thrillers of the 1990s for me. I miss Gene Hackman. I think he turned, 93? I think he turned recently, the last couple of weeks. I miss him in movies so much. And the presence he brings to this, you'll hear it in our clip. He and Denzel arguing. It's just masterful. 9 p.m. Sunday night on Paramount. Have a listen to the commander and the first officer just bicker over what to do with the nuke.
Here we go.
All I'm saying, Captain, is that we have backup. Now it's our duty not to launch until we can confirm.
You're presuming that we have other submarines out there ready to launch. But as captain, I must assume that our submarines could have been taken out by other Akulas. We can play these games all night, Mr. Hunter, but I don't have the luxury of your presumptions.
Sir.
Mr. Hunter, we have rules that are not open to interpretation, personal intuition, gut feelings, hairs on the back of your neck, little devils or angels sitting on your shoulders.
Captain.
We're all very well aware of what our orders are and what those orders mean. They come down from our commander-in-chief. They contain no ambiguity.
Captain.
Mr. Hunter, I've made a decision. I'm captain of this boat. Now shut the up!
I told him, did it not? Now, remind us where we can hear your fantastic podcast. It's off screen. It drops later on today, I think, is it not?
Yes, you can hear Off-Screen on podcast platforms, as you can every Friday from 8 a.m. with myself and the great Adam Ball dissecting the week's new releases. And this week, we get to oil up and talk about Magic Mike. What's not to love in that?
Fantastic stuff. Always great fun having Van Connor on board. Of course, he joins us each and every Friday with his 3 Freeview film recommendations, 3 from Van, 3 from me. You make your choice, and keep it tuned, please, to talkSPORT and talkRADIO, because we, my friends, are live till 5, and that's a wrap.